When you have a quadratic equation, something of this form, sometimes you can do the quadratic. You can always do the quadratic formula. Sometimes you don't need to. Like if I have an equation like this, maybe it's possible to factor it. But factoring when there's a number out here can be kind of complicated. If there is no number out there, like if the question was x squared plus 1x minus 90 equals 0, when there's no number, no so-called a coefficient, or an a coefficient of 1, and if it does factor, all you have to do is put xx, because that's how you get your x squared, then these two things become the last. They have to multiply to give me negative 90. But when I do FOIL, the outers plus the inners have to add up to plus 1. So you have to ask, okay, to get negative 90, are there two numbers whose product is negative 90, like negative 9 times 10, but at the same time whose sum is positive 1? And if so, those are the two numbers, and that means x plus 10 equals 0, x minus 9 equals 0, either of those. So negative 10 or x equals positive 9 are solutions to this equation. You could test them out. Negative 10 squared is 100, plus 1 times negative 10 is 90, minus 90 is 0. On the other hand, 9 times 9 is 81, plus 9 is 90, minus 90 is 0. But what if there's a number out here? Well, the most common way to do this requires a lot of trial and error, especially if the number out there is composite. There's different ways to get 6x squared. So we still need two numbers whose product is negative 15. And maybe after some trial and error you realize that 5 times 2 is 10, and negative 3 times 3 is negative 9, and you get it narrowed down to that, and you say 3x plus 5 equals 0, or 2x minus 3 equals 0, x equals negative 5/3, or x equals 3 over 2. But that method is pretty complicated, and that's why I'm going to show you 3 other approaches to solving this same equation. So here it is, 6x squared plus x minus 15 equals 0. One method is to multiply both sides of the equation by whatever the a coefficient is. In this case, is 6. It would turn it into 36x squared plus 36x minus 90 equals 0. Now that looks even harder than the original. But after this step, this thing's always going to be a perfect square. The 36 is, because I just multiplied the 6 by itself. So I'm going to rewrite this like this. This 36x, I'm going to write it as 6 times 6x. Notice how that's the same, that's just like the 6 in the... Oh, I just realized. Sorry. It's not 6 times 6x. There was no 6 over here. So it's 1 times 6x. And this 90, right, like that. Now this looks a lot like the question I showed you from before. You don't actually have to change them, the 6x, into u equals 6x, but you can, because then if you're good at factoring when there's a coefficient of 1 in front, that's what we're dealing with now. U plus 10, u minus 9 equals 0, so u equals negative 10, or u equals 9, but u is 6x, so 6x equals negative 10, divide both sides by 6 and get x equals negative 5/3. And here, this u is 6x also, so 6x equals 9, or x is equal to 9 over 6, which is 3 over 2. And those are the same answers that we get over here. But it's a method of converting an equation that does not have a 1 over here into one that does. There's two other methods I'm going to show you. I'll stick with the same equation, 6x squared plus x minus 15 equals 0. This is a technique called splitting the middle. The way it works is you do 6 times negative 15 is negative 90. Then we look at this plus 1 here, and we think what two numbers add up to 1 but have a product of negative 90, and it's 10 and negative 9. And what we do is we take this middle term, the plus x, and we rewrite it as plus 10x minus 9x. We keep the minus 15 from here. And now we factor by grouping. 6x squared and 10x have a common factor of 2x. So it becomes 3x plus 5. And minus 9x and minus 15 have a common factor of 3. I'm going to put a minus 3 out here so that this becomes 3x plus 5. And this is really convenient because they're both 3x plus 5s. So I factor that out, and it becomes 3x plus 5 times 2x minus 3 equals 0. Or x equals negative 5/3, or x equals 3 over 2, just like before. Some people get confused right here. Imagine if instead of 3x plus 5, it was like 2xa minus 3a equals 0. Then you'd probably not have trouble seeing how you could factor the a out. But instead of an a, I have this more complicated expression, but it still ends up over here. A final method for solving this question, 6x squared plus x minus 15. If I don't like this 6 out here, I could divide everything by 6. Then I would get x squared plus x over 6 minus 15 over 6 equals 0. Now that looks pretty hard with the fractions, but the trick is, if these fractions are both over 6, when I do the last, I'm going to get over 36. So my trick is to multiply numerator and denominator by 6, and this becomes 90 over 36. And now, once again, we're looking for two numbers whose sum is positive 1 and whose product is negative 90, and it's negative 9 plus 10. So this is minus 9, and this is plus 10. And we get x equals negative 10 over 6 equals negative 5/3, or x equals 9 over 6 equals 3 over 2. So those are three different methods: dividing everything through by a, splitting the middle, and multiplying everything through by a.